Have you ever wondered what happens when loyalty to a gang turns deadly? Patrick Langi, a member of the notorious Comancheros motorcycle club, became entangled in a violent chain of events that shook Auckland and drew national attention. This is not just another gang headline. It is a story of revenge, gunfire, and families who were dragged into a conflict they had nothing to do with. This video examines what happened, why it happened, and how law enforcement eventually caught up with those responsible. It is a story about crime, consequences, and the heavy price some people pay for life inside an outlaw motorcycle gang. Patrick Langi was not a peripheral figure. He was a patched member of the Comancheros, a club known for its intimidating reputation and strict internal code. Originally formed in Australia, the Comancheros expanded into New Zealand and quickly established themselves as one of the country's most feared outlaw motorcycle clubs. The Comancheros are not a casual biker group. Their image is built around discipline, loyalty, and the willingness to use violence when necessary. Wearing the club's colors signals full membership, respect within the group, and a commitment to putting the club above all else. For members like Patrick, that loyalty defined daily life. Life inside the Comancheros comes with constant pressure. Members are expected to prove themselves, protect secrets, and enforce the gang's rules. Violence is often normalized, and money frequently comes from illegal activities such as drug dealing, weapons trafficking, and intimidation. Police had been monitoring the gang for years, aware of the influence it held and the risks it posed. Despite the dangers, these gangs continue to attract young men searching for belonging, power, and protection. Once inside, leaving is extremely difficult. The rules of the club do not end with membership. They extend into every part of a member's life. Walking away is seen as betrayal, and betrayal is rarely forgiven. In Patrick Langi's case, events began to spiral when tensions grew between the Comancheros and a former member who wanted out. Khaled Suleiman had decided he no longer wanted to be part of the gang lifestyle. But within the Comancheros, quitting is not a personal decision. Members who leave are often required to pay a so-called exit fee. When Khaled refused or failed to pay that fee, the situation escalated. What followed was not a simple warning or internal punishment. The gang chose to send a message through fear and violence, targeting not just the former member, but the people around him. At this point, Patrick was no longer just another gang member going about daily business. He became part of a plan that would spill gang conflict into residential neighborhoods and put innocent lives at risk. Leaving the Comancheros without permission or payment was viewed as a direct challenge to the gang's authority. In outlaw motorcycle clubs, loyalty is demanded, not requested. Any act seen as defiance is met with swift and severe consequences. Patrick Langi, along with fellow member Elijah Meyer, was tasked with delivering that message. The goal was intimidation, and the method was extreme. The targets were not gang rivals, but family homes connected to Khaled. Innocent people were about to be caught in the crossfire of an internal gang dispute. On the night of August 25, 2023, the plan was carried out. Using stolen vehicles, Patrick and Elijah conducted drive-by shootings at two properties linked to Khaled's family. The first attack took place in Mangere, where bullets smashed windows and tore through a bedroom where children were present. Those children had nothing to do with the gang or its conflicts, yet they were exposed to the terror of gunfire, simply because of their connection to someone who had tried to leave the club. The second attack followed soon after. Another home was sprayed with bullets, and a man attempting to flee the property was grazed by gunfire. After the shootings, both vehicles used in the attacks were set on fire. a deliberate attempt to destroy evidence and obstruct the police investigation. This was not random violence. It was calculated intimidation. Investigators later uncovered evidence showing the attackers had researched the locations in advance. Google Maps searches were used to identify the homes, and surveillance photos confirmed that the targets had been carefully selected. Despite the planning, the police response was swift. Gunshot residue was found on the clothing of both Patrick and Elijah. CCTV footage and witness statements placed them at the scenes. Their initial denials collapsed as the evidence mounted. Patrick Langi found himself trapped by his own actions, with no way to escape the consequences. What shocked the public most was not just the violence itself, but who it affected. The homes belonged to families. Children were placed in danger. Entire neighborhoods were left shaken. For many people in Auckland, the case served as a stark reminder that gang conflicts do not stay within gang circles. When loyalty turns into violence, it is often innocent people who pay the highest price. Gang violence never stays contained. Its effects ripple outward, impacting entire communities. Innocent people often pay the price simply because they live in the wrong neighborhood or have the wrong connection. Patrick Langi's role in this case was not just about carrying out orders for a gang. It revealed how gangs enforce their rules, using fear and violence to maintain control. Once someone is inside an outlaw motorcycle gang, walking away without permission puts not only them, but everyone around them at risk. As police began closing in, it became clear that Patrick's story would not fade quietly. The evidence was mounting, and the pressure from law enforcement was growing. What remained uncertain was how the courts would respond and what Patrick's future would ultimately look like. After the shootings shocked Auckland, police moved quickly to reconstruct what had happened. This was not a simple investigation. Officers had to untangle a web of gang secrecy, coded communication, and unspoken threats. As the inquiry progressed, it became clear just how carefully Patrick Langi and Elijah Meyer had planned the attacks. The use of stolen vehicles, which were later set on fire, showed a deliberate attempt to erase evidence. However, those efforts failed. Forensic testing revealed gunshot residue on both men and on the vehicles they used, directly linking them to the shootings. This type of evidence left little room for denial. Digital evidence proved equally damaging. Investigators discovered that Patrick and Elijah had used Google Maps to locate and study the targeted family homes. Photos and videos were taken to confirm the locations in advance, demonstrating clear intent and premeditation. Surveillance cameras captured the stolen vehicles arriving and leaving the areas, allowing police to build a detailed timeline. Witnesses also came forward. Some reported hearing gunfire echo through the streets, while others saw vehicles speeding away from the scenes. Together, these accounts strengthened the case against the two men. But the investigation went beyond physical evidence. Police needed to understand the motivation behind the attacks. Patrick's ties to the Comancheros placed him within a broader system of control, where authority is maintained through intimidation and punishment. Interviews with informants, former associates, and community members painted a picture of a gang attempting to maintain its dominance, particularly after Khalid Suleiman tried to leave without following its rules. The so-called exit fee was not merely about money. It was a warning designed to deter others from doing the same. This context exposed the dangerous code Patrick was enforcing. In gang culture, rules are absolute. Disobedience is met with swift and often violent retaliation. The attacks were intended to terrify not only Khalid, but everyone connected to him. As the evidence continued to pile up, Patrick could no longer rely on the gang for protection. Forensic reports, surveillance footage, and witness testimony all pointed in his direction. Initial denials quickly collapsed under the weight of the facts. The reality became clear that gang loyalty offers little protection once law enforcement becomes fully engaged. The investigation also highlighted the wider impact of the violence. Families lived in fear. Neighbors felt unsafe in their own homes. Communities demanded stronger action against gang activity. These shootings were not isolated incidents. They sent a message to the entire city, demonstrating how gang conflicts can spill into everyday life with devastating consequences. For Patrick, this marked a turning point. The investigation was thorough, and the case against him was strong. It was only a matter of time before the legal system caught up. His case eventually moved into the courtroom, where the stakes were higher and the outcome uncertain. This was not just about a gang member facing justice. It was about accountability for the families who endured that terrifying night. The charges were serious, including reckless discharge of a firearm, arson for burning the stolen vehicles, and attempted murder. In court, Patrick pleaded guilty to several charges, including reckless shooting and arson. The attempted murder charge was dropped as part of a plea agreement, a common legal strategy that saves court resources and often results in a reduced sentence. Despite this, the seriousness of the crimes was not diminished. The judge emphasized that Patrick's actions endangered innocent lives. Shooting at family homes, especially where children were present, extended far beyond gang business. It was a threat to public safety. Evidence presented during the trial made it clear that the attacks were calculated and deliberate, intended to punish Khaled for breaking gang rules. However, the consequences reached far beyond him. Families were left traumatized, carrying fear long after the gunfire ended. The courtroom proceedings exposed the harsh reality of gang life, where loyalty is demanded and mistakes can lead to years behind bars. Patrick's guilty plea represented an acknowledgement of responsibility, but it also meant facing the full consequences of his actions. Sentencing was scheduled for a later date, leaving many to question what punishment would be sufficient for crimes of this scale. For the wider community, the case served as a reminder that gang violence affects far more than those directly involved. While gangs often operate in secrecy, their actions have real and lasting consequences. Patrick Langi's case is not just the story of one man's choices. It highlights the broader realities of gang life in New Zealand and the ripple effects those choices have on families and communities. The shootings were not random acts of violence. They were deliberate warnings meant to enforce control through fear. Yet the fallout extended far beyond the gang's world. Families who had no involvement in these conflicts were forced to live in fear. Children were endangered in their own bedrooms. Neighborhoods were shaken by violence they never expected to witness. Patrick's story is ultimately a cautionary tale about loyalty, power, and consequences. While gangs promise belonging and protection, they demand obedience and punish defiance brutally. His decision to follow orders led to severe consequences, including imprisonment and a lasting criminal record. This case also raises difficult questions. What drives people to join gangs? How can communities disrupt cycles of violence? And what support systems are needed to help individuals leave gang life without fear of retaliation? Law enforcement and community organizations continue to confront these challenges, but the path forward remains difficult. Gangs like the Comancheros are deeply entrenched, and their influence reaches far beyond their members. In the end, this case reminds us that gang violence is not just a headline. It is lived reality for many people. While justice may offer accountability, healing takes far longer. The hope is that stories like this encourage meaningful conversations about safety, support, and change, and about building communities where no family has to fear violence at their doorstep.